When PETA goes south of the border, it's no vacation. It's hard work. When it comes to dealing with an animal population problem that's out of control, it's PETA's spay-neuter campaign in Mexico. And sometimes they rescue an animal and bring it back to America. With full papers, of course. No undocumented dogs here. That's next on the PETA Podcast. Welcome to the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo, your host for this inside look at animal rights, brought to you by PETA, the largest animal rights organization in the world. On today's episode, you may think you know Mexico from watching Eva Longoria eating her way through the country. At least that's better than watching the news, which isn't always cheery when it's focused on issues like immigration or cartels or... Well, you definitely won't hear much about the animal population problem there, and that's where PETA comes in, specifically PETA Latino. For the last few years, thanks to PETA's Global Compassion Fund, PETA's effort has resulted in free spay-neuter surgeries for nearly 3,000 dogs and cats. Concentrating on Cancun's homeless animal crisis is no vacation. In fact, it's far from the resort areas that you might know. It's often in areas with no electricity or running water. To those residents there, spaying and neutering an animal isn't a priority until PETA showed up with its free spayathons. One event helped 460 animals in 2 days. Rachel Bellis is Associate Director of Local Affairs for PETA's Cruelty Investigations Department. She talks about how this spring they rescued 3 dogs, Matilda, Manuel, and Maria. She talks about how the shelters are overwhelmed in much of Mexico and how going to Mexico has given meaning to her work and her life of activism. My conversation with Rachel Bellis about PETA Latino's spay-neutering efforts in Mexico on the PETA Podcast. Tell me about the spay-neuter issue in Mexico, and because it had to be pretty significant for PETA to get involved, huh?
Well, I know that PETA supports spay neuter. We have campaigns all around the world, and we support other groups that do spay neuter. And Mexico just has a huge overpopulation crisis. You know, if we think that we have one here in the United States, it's just really out of control in Mexico. And there are just dogs in the street everywhere. And some of them might even have owners, but the mentality is just kind of let them run on the streets. They haven't been sterilized, so they're all having babies and getting sick, and so it's a huge problem there. But the mentality is slowly changing, and by offering the free spay neuter clinics that we do, you know, we're really getting to the heart of the issue and saving lives through prevention.
And had you been to Mexico before you went down there, or was that your first visit?
I lived in Mexico from about 2003 to 2005 and a half, more or less. And I lived close to the area that I go to now. So I lived in Playa del Carmen, which is about an hour from Cancun. So I'm familiar with the culture. I speak Spanish because I lived there and I lived in Spain for many years. And so going there wasn't super unfamiliar to me.
Yeah. And so, so you weren't shocked by anything you saw. I mean, you were familiar with the culture, but was the animal situation, was that kind of shocking still?
It was. And because when I lived in Mexico, I was working in a hotel. So I would only really see the issue when I wasn't working and I was going outside or going shopping or whatever. But now being there, working with the municipal shelter of Cancun and going to other places outside of Cancun and going into these areas where the issue is so big. It's a totally different view of how things are that I see. And so I feel very lucky and happy that we have the opportunity to go down there and try to change minds and really try to make a difference and just sterilize as many animals as we possibly can.
A lot of people know about the overpopulation problem, dog, cat overpopulation problem here in the United States. But what is the mindset in Mexico, and how severe compared to the United States is the overpopulation problem?
A lot of people go to Cancun on vacation, or they'll say to me, "Oh, you're going to Cancun again? Wow, feel sorry for you." But I don't see what the tourists see. There are so many areas that are underserved, and there are just animals everywhere. And the idea is that a lot of these people, they don't have money. They don't even have $30 or $40 to get their animals sterilized, which is what it might cost at a low-cost clinic. They don't have that. They don't have, in a lot of the areas that we go to, there's no running water. They don't have electricity. And so getting their dog or cat sterilized is not on their list of priorities. And we have a waiting list for our spay-neuter clinics. And so there's definitely a desire, and we are sort of, changing hearts and minds, but there's just so much more work to be done.
You went down there there was a 2-day spay-neuter event hosted by PETA Latino. And we must mention that PETA Latino is this massively popular, side of PETA that most people don't see, but it serves the Spanish-speaking or the Hispanic speaking countries and communities around the world.
Yeah, PETA Latino is awesome, and it's just growing and growing, and more people are offering their voice to us. More and more celebrities, people that are well known in these countries, they're offering their voice to support the work that we do and support animal welfare and trying to make a difference. So I started going to Mexico for PETA in April of 2021. So that was the first time that I went down there, because we were sponsoring a spay-neuter clinic with the municipal shelter in Cancun. And since then, I've been down about 9 times.
Wow. You're really making it into a vacation.
No, I don't see the beach.
Yeah.
I promise I don't see the beach when I go down there. I don't even want to. I mean, there's just so much work to be done, and we're actually expanding the work that we do. So I was down there in March, and that was the last of our 3 winter clinics. We wanted to do 3 winter clinics. And so we spayed and neutered 820 animals in those 3 clinics. And in the last one that we did in March, we sterilized 460 dogs and cats in 2 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a need, the definite need. And you say you have people waiting on waiting lists.
We have wait lists, and people are always asking, when is the next clinic? When is the next clinic? Because what we do now is, so what we found was that when we were having the spay-neuter clinics at the shelter, and they were full, and we would do more than what we anticipated. But there was a section of the community that doesn't have transportation. They're not necessarily on Facebook or social media. And they were saying to us, we can't get to you. We can't get to you. So instead of us trying to transport animals to the shelter, we said, let's just do clinics in these neighborhoods. And we'll sort of go from neighborhood to neighborhood, and we'll offer these spay-neuter clinics. And so we do the clinics at schools now. And the whole community gets involved. They know we're going there. It's a collaboration between the Benito Juarez municipality, which is Cancun and all of that region, and the shelter. And we bring in vets. If we don't have enough vets where we are, we bring in vets from other parts of Mexico that are specialized in these sort of more rustic spay-neuter clinics. And we just go, and we just, we don't turn people away. We'll just work until, 8 o'clock at night, whatever it takes to get as many animals sterilized. And we also vaccinate, and we send people home with pain meds now. And we have also started doing field work. So we will have the spay neuter clinics, and then we'll go and check on dogs, and we'll just go into the community, into the neighborhoods, and say, hey, do you need some shelter for your dog? Kind of like what our community animal project does, our field workers. We're starting to do that in these parts of Cancun.
And it's all free, right? It's no cost.
It's all free.
And how do you get funded for? I mean, this is all by donations and the kindness of PETA donors, I guess.
Exactly. I mean, we would not be able to do this work without our amazing donor base and the Global Compassion Fund that is just making a huge difference, helping so many animals. And so, yeah, we wouldn't be able to offer these services if it wasn't for these folks who are helping us do that.
And without these services, what kind of situation would exist in places like that section of Cancun in Mexico?
It would be very difficult for people. There aren't groups like ours that are doing the work that we're doing. And we are bringing awareness to the shelter, to local elected officials of the problem that exists. And they're taking notice. The mayor came to our last clinic and presented PETA with a certificate of appreciation. They've been very vocal about their support for the work that we do, and they want to continue collaborating with us. But there are groups throughout Mexico that are helping, but not, on the scale and as many as we're doing. And so, we're all just trying to work together and just help as many animals as possible. And yeah, we're making a difference. We have a long road to go, but we are making a difference. We're saving thousands of lives. When we think about the more than 2,500 animals we've sterilized since I started going to Mexico in 2021. I mean, that's millions of lives saved through these spay neuter clinics.
Millions of lives, meaning dogs who would have been part of the overpopulation and then it would have had to have been put down, or?
Well, dogs and cats who are not giving birth, and then their puppies or kittens are not giving birth. And so when you think about all of the puppies and kittens that can start reproducing when they're still so young, and it's just that vicious cycle. So we're stopping that cycle.
And then not to mention the improvement in human lives, who are the companions of these animals.
That's right. There are a lot of people that want to do the right thing, but they don't have the funds to do it. They don't have the resources. They don't know where to go for help. And so, our goal and our reach is actually getting bigger now, because we are reaching out to other groups to see what they're doing and how we can help. We went to Chichimila. So we're not just going to Cancun. We went to a very small town called Chichimila, which is about 2.5 hours outside of Cancun. We did a spay neuter clinic there in November of 2021. And we sterilized 167 dogs and cats in 2 days. And they have no vet services in this town. It is so rural. And I went back recently to talk to the mayor, and he was so positive about the spay neuter clinic, and he wants us to come back, and he wants to invite sort of the towns around Chichimila to offer that service, because there's just absolutely nothing there.
They don't have a kind of infrastructure like they would have animal control in populations here in the United States. They don't have that kind of infrastructure in Mexico?
Not in these areas. Cancun has the municipal shelter sort of acts as animal control. So you have it in the big cities, but in tiny little pueblos like Chichimila and the ones that surround it, they don't have those services. And I mean, I don't even know that law enforcement would know what to do with mean, they might know what to do with an animal cruelty situation, but it's not on their radar. It's not something that they're thinking about. So by going to these places, offering free spay neuter surgeries, we are educating as well about the importance of spay neuter, about basic animal care, treating mange. We see a lot of mange. And so it's all sort of, it spreads. All of this work sort of spreads and changes and people's minds and how they treat their animals, and they're investing a little bit more in their animals and seeing, the benefit, and also just sort of making them more part of the family. Because if you're investing in your animal, you're taking pride in them, you're making them more important, and hopefully they become more part of the family.
Yeah. Now, you were in Cancun, not the resort part, but in where the locals were, and then you went about 2.5 hours away. Would it be different in Mexico City, the big, metropolitan area, or would it be worse because there's so many people? I mean, many people listening to this, some of whom may not have visited Mexico ever. They might know of Mexico City from the news or from television, but would it be a different kind of situation in the big city, or maybe more problematic because it's so big?
I haven't been to Mexico City. I've spoken with vets who do low-cost spay neuter in Mexico City, and the need seems to be pretty great there as well. And I'm actually talking to a group now about organizing a spay neuter clinic in Mexico City, because there is such a need. It's all over, and it's not just here. It's not just in Mexico. It's all over the place. We have a very large overpopulation crisis of companion animals. And, our main goal is to sterilize as many animals as possible to get to the root of the problem.
And you realize that it is a global concern, but I think the thing about Mexico, it's our neighbor to the south, and most people don't understand or, see this part of the problem. They might see, if they're in America, they might see, we have the southern border and we have people crossing the border, and they see Mexico in terms of immigration, but they don't see all these other things like animal overpopulation. And, compared to immigration, it might be easy for some people to say, to poo-poo the idea and say, oh, it's not a problem, but it's a problem. And it increases the quality of life when the problem is dealt with, the quality of life for everyone, not just the animals and not just the dogs and the cats, but the human beings. And yet it's one of those things that is kind of seen as a luxury in Mexico, if you can get this kind of service.
Yeah. And we have to continue to work with elected officials to make it an important issue to offer these services. We are always encouraging the city hall and the mayor and the council members. They have to make this service free to people. They have to work harder to offer these services, because there's no lack of people who want to sterilize their animals, and they don't have the funds, and there are no resources for them to do that. And like I said, even $20 or $30 is a lot. There are wonderful people out there who want to do well, and we work with rescuers as well down there to get the word out about our spay neuter clinics, because they are working directly with the people that this affects most. And animal cruelty as well. It's just, one of the dogs that we brought back this last time, we named her Matilda, and she's sort of a Dachshund Chihuahua mix. This woman came to our spay neuter clinic and she said, I have a dog in my house. She was being beaten by her owner. He threw her out onto the street. She just had puppies. A few have died. I can't keep her because I already have dogs in my house, but I want to do the right thing. And I said, bring her to us. We'll figure it out. So she brought her to us. All of her puppies had died. We took her back to the shelter, and we ended up bringing her back to the States. And just this, there was no investigation into who was beating her. It's just sort of, I don't want to say that it's not taken seriously. It's just so overwhelming. It's so overwhelming. And they do investigate animal cruelty, but, we find dogs walking around with mats. I mean, mats that I don't know how this dog is walking around, but just, so we picked up this dog and we took him back to the shelter and we shaved him. The PETA field workers that I was with, we shaved this dog down. And I mean, it was like a wild animal, this fur that we took off of this dog, just knots. And I don't know how he could see, and his whole body was just covered in. That is animal cruelty. And it's not being investigated. It's just like, oh, yeah, we see that all the time. It's so things just, we have to keep pushing and we have to keep working. And by doing these spay neuter clinics, we are talking more with people. People are reporting animal cruelty. We're spaying and neutering. We're getting animals out of bad situations. It's a long road ahead of us, but we're PETA. We're not afraid of a fight.
Yeah. Well, tell me about, not that you fight the people down there, but there's got to be some challenges of going to another country. Your background, having lived in Spain and Mexico before and speaking the language, that has to help. But tell me about the challenges of going to another country, because at some point you have to stop yourself and say, oh, this isn't the United States. This isn't home. It's different here. And I put it in the perspective of the listeners who, as I said earlier, their vision of Mexico is not, this is a place to call home. They might see it as a problem area. It's south of the border. They might see it in terms of, oh, it's violent. It's not safe. That must cross a lot of people's minds if they only see or only know about Mexico from what they see in the news.
Because, like you said, because I've lived there, because I've lived abroad, I understand going into another country and the respect that you must show for that culture, not going in, I'm an American, I'm North American, and we want to do this, and you're going to do what we say. You can't do that. You can't do that anywhere, really. But if we want to make a difference, we make friends. I am very grateful for our partners at the shelter in Cancun for allowing us to come in and working together to get to the root of the problem. But yeah, you go down there, you focus on the task at hand, and you are as careful as you can be. But I feel very safe when I go down there. The people have been wonderful that I've interacted with. Everybody is very open to our help. And so, yeah, when I say that we're PETA and we're not afraid of a fight, it's just, it's a challenge, but we know what we have to do, and we're going to keep doing it. And yes, you have to go down there with being realistic and just having a sense of respect for this other country that you're in, and you're a guest. I'm a guest in their country, and I want to continue to be a guest in their country.
You have been doing this since 2021, you said, for PETA, right?
Going down to Mexico. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And now you've done about, did you say 4 or 6 clinics?
We've done about 9 clinics in total.
And you're not going to stop. This is going to continue on, and you're going to expand the reach in terms of the regions and parts of Mexico, because, boy, there's a lot of now awareness or a growing sense of, boy, we don't know enough about our neighbor to the south. There's some new programs on cable channels about here's Mexico and talking about the culture. Amazing how much we know, how little we know of Mexico. But this is a side that, where people can help. And this is something that PETA is going to continue, you say, huh?
As long as we can. We are planning our next spay neuter clinic probably end of June. And hopefully we can do another one in another summer clinic and maybe head down for the fall as well. Our clinics are getting bigger, they're getting better. We're having more reach, but obviously we wouldn't be able to do this again without the Global Compassion Fund and the amazing donors and members that we have that support our work and allow us to go down there and help these folks and help all these animals.
Yeah. Now you talked about Matilda, the dog. She's in America now. You took her. She doesn't need a visa, right? You can take dogs across the border.
Yeah, you have to get their health certificate, their little booklet with their vaccines and stuff like that. But yeah, it's not too difficult to bring a dog home. We actually brought 3 this last time.
Is it easier to deal with dogs there and say, take care of them there and they stay there? Or is it something where maybe there's a rescue component of bringing dogs like Matilda back to the United States?
I think that the mentality of adoption at shelters is not where it needs to be. It's not where it needs to be in the United States. There's so many people that are still buying dogs from pet stores and breeders. But in Mexico, we have a long way to go there. There aren't as many people going to the shelters and adopting dogs, so they have less of a chance. And so there are a lot of dogs coming to the United States and to Canada from groups in Mexico. And if we can bring back a few and get them into good homes and just sort of bring awareness to where they came from in their situation. We brought back 2 other dogs besides Matilda, so there were 3 in total. At Manuel, we named him, who was extremely matted as well, and Maria, and they were in a house together, and the house had been abandoned. The owner left them inside, and it took time because of the laws in Mexico. It took so much time for animal control to be able to go in and have the dogs removed. They had to wait and wait and wait. They couldn't go. So finally they got permission to go in and remove the dogs, but they've been abandoned inside this house, and I think charges are pending against the owner if they can find him, but I don't even know if they ever found him. And so that's so typical. Dogs being left on roofs and dogs being chained out without any shelter, which obviously we see here and our field workers see that every day, but it exists everywhere, And so the work is very important and we have a long way to go, but I think we're making progress.
So you were able to save Manuel and who was his companion?
Maria.
Manuel and Maria. They're now American citizens.
Yes. Yeah, we actually transferred them to our shelter partner at the Chesapeake Humane Society, and they were adopted like that.
See, they had a home. Now, if they were in Mexico and they stayed in a shelter in Mexico, what are the odds of them being adopted?
They might have been adopted. The thing is that the shelter is overwhelmed. The shelter is overwhelmed and adoptions are very low right now. And so what we want to do is help the shelter by getting them out so that they can put their resources towards other dogs that need them. So any chance that we can bring back a dog or 2 or 3, we are helping the shelter out and they can put those resources towards other dogs.
Yeah. Now, is that something that people who might be listening to this might consider that, hey, we'll go down to Cancun for vacation, and when we come back, instead of a souvenir, we'll go down to the local shelter and we'll bring back a dog? Is that something that could be possible?
Well, yes, it could be possible depending on how long you're going to be there, making sure that the dog has all of their papers to come back into the States. But obviously, it should not be something, we never encourage people to impulse adopt or say, oh, I feel so bad, I'm going to take this dog home. And then you get home and it's like, oh, I don't have time for this animal. So we always encourage people to, really take the time to think, do I have time for this companion animal? Do I have the financial resources to take care of them for the next 15, 16, 17 years or more? So it should never be impulsive. But there are plenty of animals down there that need loving homes.
Yeah. Is there, you mentioned Matilda, you mentioned Manuel, and you mentioned Maria. So is there, I mean, and you go down there all the time now, right? Nine times now you said to Mexico?
About 9 times.
Yeah. And so what is an experience with a particular dog or cat that reminds you that you got to keep going down? You got to keep doing this.
The last time we were down there, after the spay neuter clinic, we went to check on a dog that had been neutered, and the family was wonderful. They were wonderful. They were doing everything right. They had several dogs, and they had recently taken in a puppy that they found in the street. And she was not doing well. She was covered in fleas. She was thin. She had worms. She had some skin issues. She was just all over in a bad way. She'd been probably, maybe she was born on the street, and that's where she had stayed until these kind people found her. So the woman didn't have the funds to take care of her. So she gave her to us. We took her back to the shelter, and she started receiving treatment. Now, she was too young for us to bring back, but that is a dog that stays with me because she was able to get out, and we found her just because we were doing field work, and we happened to go to this house that had her. Now, there are countless dogs like her out there, and she stays with me because we were able to get her, and she will have a chance because the shelter was going to take care of her and get her the vet care she needed and get her adopted. But she is one of the reasons why I continue to go down there and want to make our clinics bigger and better and go into areas and talk to people and try to help them see, the importance of spay neuter and the importance of keeping their dogs safe indoors, and trying to get better laws passed that protect them more. And so she's a good example of one of the reasons why I am so passionate about Mexico and the work that we're doing down there. And, all over the world, there are millions of stories like her. And this work is just it's just too wonderful that we get to go down there and do this work and help as much as we can.
Did you name her?
No, we didn't name her. We were going to let the shelter do that. And they were having an adoption event a few weeks after we left. And they said that they were going to, if she was all better and up to weight and feeling good, they were going to put her up for adoption. So
maybe you'll see her again.
Maybe. Well, I hope not. I hope that she was adopted into a wonderful home and she's happy and living the life that she deserves instead of being on the street.
And that if she's a success story, there are other success stories waiting to happen.
Yes. And also something else that we're doing down there, we're working with the shelter to make improvements to how they function, their work protocols, their cleaning protocols. They're expanding the shelter. And so we have been allowed to go in and offer our expertise because we have people with, decades of experience working in shelters. And so anything that we can offer to help them and to improve conditions, we're going to do that. It's also good for the community when their animal shelter is working well and doing good. And, I'm always telling the shelter, you need to tell people what you're doing. You need to get it out there. You're doing good work. You're saving these animals. You're helping. You're working with the community. You have to let people know what you're doing.
And the people respond to that. I mean, when they tell the community backs them up 100%, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And they get a lot of support from their legislators and their mayor is very supportive. So, we're helping out. We're offering our services as much as possible, as much as we can.
Well, Rachel Bellis, what is your official title there, Rachel? I mean, you're the Associate Director of Local Affairs for the Cruelty of Investigations Department.
Yes.
I know. So, look, doing great work, and I hope you continue to save more dogs and cats. You talked about dogs. There's got to be some cats in there.
Oh yeah, the cat overpopulation is immense as well, but it's huge also. But the cats are very good at hiding down there.
Yeah.
You don't see them as much, but that they're there. Oh yeah, for sure, cats and dogs.
Okay. All right. Well, listen. Good luck and continued success. Rachel Bellis, thank you for being on the PETA Podcast.
Thank you, Emil.
Rachel Bellis is Associate Director of Local Affairs for PETA's Cruelty Investigations Department. I'm glad to report that the 3 rescued dogs now in the U.S., Matilda, Manuel, and Maria, are all doing well. For more on PETA's spay-neuter efforts in Mexico, go to PETA.org. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to send a link of this show to your friends. Tell them you like the PETA Podcast. You can contact us at PETA.org. You can find me on Twitter at Emil Amok, that's EMILAMOK, or see my vlog at AMOK.com. Or see my work, my writing at ALDEF, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, ALDEF, AALDEF.org/blog, or get this podcast on YouTube at Emil Amok 1, EMILAMOK 1. Once again, thank you for listening. Check out all our episodes on your favorite podcast app or on Apple Podcasts, where you can subscribe to, as well as rate and review the show. It helps get the word out about the issues you care about. Our music is provided by CarbonWorks. Check them out on YouTube. And join us again next time for more insight into animal rights and the fight for a cruelty-free world on the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo.